I mean, it's one of the most disgusting things that we think of.
I spent too much time thinking about all the Epstein variants. He belonged to intelligence. The question is really about, why was he so protected? What was Bill Gates' complicity with Epstein?
I had dinners with him. I regret doing that.
This is crazy, guys. Epstein was advising former Israeli PM Barak to approach Palantir founder Peter Thiel. And lo and behold, that's who we're going to be reacting to. Joe Rogan talking to Peter Thiel about Jeffrey Epstein and evil wickedness he was doing.
Epstein on tape advising former Israeli PM Barak to approach Palantir founder Peter Thiel.
He thought there was two cyber companies. Look out, and even though I know Peter, I've never met Peter Thiel. And everybody says he sort of jumps around and acts sort of strange, like he's on drugs.
Smoking, yeah.
Okay.
He looks under drugs.
However, he has a company called Palantir, Pallentir.
And Palantir is what everyone talks about that being the Antichrist and all that, but it's a whole nother situation right here.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
This is Joe Rogan talking to Peter Thiel, Jeffrey Epstein, and all of this disguised. It's very fascinating stuff. I would have never thought that it would be Peter Thiel's take.
What are the consequences? They were able to pull off this thing, some sort of operation. Who knows who was behind it? Who knows what was the motivation? But it clearly has something to do with compromising people, which is an age-old strategy for getting people to do what you want them to do. You have things on them, you use those things as leverage, and then next thing you know, you've got people saying things that you want them to say, and it moves policy, changes things, you get things done. That they did that.
Yes.
And and we know they did that, and yet no one is asking for the tapes. No one's asking for the client list. We're in the dark still.
And probably, I don't know, man. I spent too much time thinking about all the Epstein variants.
Really? Why is that?
It probably this stuff is overdone and everything else is underdone. It's like a limited hangout. We get to talk about the crazy and not about all the other questions. It's like when Alex Acosta.
Yeah, but that's honestly still one of the most deplorable things you can think about if you're with underage people. Like, that's just deplorable, disgusting, completely against God's design.
Acosta testified for Labor Secretary, and he was the DA who'd prosecuted Epstein in 2008, 2009, and got him sort of the very light 13-month or whatever sentence. And it was a South Florida DA or whatever he was. And Acosta was asked, why did he get off so easily? And under congressional testimony, when he was up for Labor Secretary 2017, it was he belonged to intelligence. That's
yeah.
Whoa.
And then
what intelligence? People say, oh, he was working for the Israeli government, but and he makes a good point, saying people who work for other governments get off. They still go to prison. They get caught.
And so the question isn't about this with the women. The question is really about why was he so protected? And then I went down all these rabbit holes. Was he working for the Israelis or the Mossad or all this sort of stuff? And I've come to think that was very secondary. It was obviously it was just the U.S. If you're working for Israel, you don't get protected. We had Jonathan Pollard. He went to jail for 25 years or whatever. But
unrelated, right?
Understood. But
this is one particular operation.
It was if it was an intelligence operation, the question we should be asking is what part of the U.S. intelligence system was he working for? Was he working for
But don't you think that's an effective strategy for controlling politicians? Getting them involved in scandals? I mean, that's always been one of the worst things that can happen to a politician. Look at Monica Lewinsky. A very simple one. Consensual
That's the most easy thing to get people to get in trouble with. 100% for men. Oh man, that's why the Bible warns about it so much. And it's fascinating that Joe Rogan is having this conversation with Peter Thiel, and he talked about Peter Thiel and how he would look like someone who'd be the Antichrist in another video.
One of the worst things that can happen to a politician, look at Monica Lewinsky. A very simple one. Consensual, inappropriate sexual relationship between a president and a staffer, and it almost takes down the presidency. It causes him to get impeached. Powerful motivators. The shame of it all, also the illegal activity, the fact that it's one of the most disgusting things that we think of, with people having people.
I'm sure that was part of it. I suspect there are a lot of other questions that one should also
most
ask.
certainly. But I would think that is one of the best motivators that we have, is having dirt on people like that, especially something that could ruin your career, especially people that are deeply embedded in this system of people knowing things about people and using those at their advantage. I mean, that's an age-old strategy in politics. That was J. Edgar Hoover's entire modus operandi.
Yeah, look, my riff on it was always that it's a little bit different from the J. Edgar Hoover thing, and the question was always whether the people doing it knew they were getting compromised. And so it's the vibe is not that you somehow got compromised. It was more you were joining this this secret club.
Right.
And you got to be made.
Yes.
You're a made man in the mafia.
And you get to do crazy things.
No. It's only if we have compromise on you do you get ahead.
Right.
It's like I don't know. It's one of these
Skull and bones
closet.
type
Yeah,
things.
the closet of the Vatican.
Right.
The claim is 80% of the cardinals in the Catholic Church are gay. Not sure.
That does seem like a legitimate thing, even for celebrities who seemingly have to do some sus things to get ahead. But they also have that on you so that you're a puppet for them.
If that's true, but directionally, it's probably correct. And the basic thesis is you don't get promoted to a cardinal if you're straight, because we need to have, and so you need to be compromised, and then you're under control.
That's crazy.
But you also get ahead.
Completely makes sense. Completely makes sense in the way to do that, with especially all these politicians who are essentially like bad actors. A lot of them, they're just people that want power and people that want control. A lot of them, and those kind of guys, they want to party. I mean, that has been. You've got two types of leaders that are presidents. You've got hounds and warmongers. And sometimes you have both, but generally you don't. Guys like Clinton and JFK were anti-war, and then you have guys like Bush, who you don't think of at all as a hound, but most certainly you think of as a warmonger.
Do you do you have a theory on what was Bill Gates' complicity with Epstein?
I think he likes.
That's crazy. We're gonna go to that video and a little bit of the allegations.
What do you have a theory on what was Bill Gates' complicity with Epstein?
I think he likes pussy. I think he's a man. I think he likes power. He likes monopoly. I mean, he's incredibly effective with Microsoft, and for the longest time, he was thought of as a villain, right? He was this antitrust villain. He was this guy who was monopolizing this operating system and controlling just this incredible empire, and he had a real bad rap. And then I think he wisely turned towards philanthropy. And
do you think that he needed Epstein?
I think it's very
to do
difficult. Very, very famous, very high-profile person to go around. I think it's very difficult.
Yeah, I can totally believe that. Like, if you're trying to lay low, be discreet, because you never know who's going to tell on you. So if he's trying to find something, which is extremely disgusting and terrible, what do you think is going to happen?
You had a number of meetings with Jeffrey Epstein.
I'm going to this video real quick.
Who, when you met him 10 years ago, he was convicted of soliciting. What did you know about him when you were meeting with him, as you've said yourself, in the hopes of raising money?
I had dinners with him. I regret doing that. He had relationships with people he said, would give to global health, which is a interest I have. Not nearly enough philanthropy goes in that direction. Those meetings were a mistake. They didn't result in what he purported, and I cut them off. That goes back a long time ago now. So there's nothing new on that.
It was reported that you continued to meet with him over several years, and that, in other words, a number of meetings. What did you do when you found out about his background?
Well, I've said I regretted having those dinners, and there's absolutely nothing new on that.
Is there a lesson for you, for anyone else looking at this?
Well, he's dead, so in general, you always have to be careful. I'm very proud of what we've done in philanthropy. Very proud of the.
Isn't that convenient? He completely shifted the narrative, and it's sad.
I think you have to worry about people telling people. You worry about it taking you down if you're having affairs. If you're running some philanthropy organization, you're supposed to be thought of as this guy who's like this wonderful person who's trying to really fix all the problems in the world, but really he's just flying around and banging all these different chicks. You have to figure out a way to pull that off. And this is what Eric Weinstein and we've had discussions about this, and Eric's position is that there are people in this world that can provide experiences for you and safely for people that are in that kind of a group. And that makes sense. It makes sense that if you pay people enough and you have people motivated in order to establish these relationships and make sure that these things happen. When you get very high profile, you can't just be on a fucking dating app. And if you're a guy who likes to bang chicks, what are you going to do?
All of that might be true, but I wonder if there are more straightforward alternate conspiracy theories on Epstein that we're missing. So let me do
maybe, but it's the funny thing is Peter Thiel is also a billionaire. So he should know some of the ramifications of this.
Sure. Bill Gates, where the things just looking at what's hiding in plain sight. He supposedly talked to Epstein early on about how his marriage wasn't doing that well. And then Epstein suggested that he should get a divorce.
That's crazy.
Circa 2010, 2011. And
Gates
told him something like, that doesn't quite work. He didn't have, presumably because he didn't have a prenup. So there's one part of Epstein as a marriage counselor, which is sort of disturbing. But then the second thing that we know that Gates talked to Epstein about was all this sort of collaborating on funding, setting up this philanthropy, all this sort of this somewhat corrupt left-wing philanthropy structures. And so there's a question, and then my sort of straightforward alternate conspiracy theory is should we combine those two? And was there and I don't have all the details on this figured out, but it would be something like, Bill and Melinda get married in 1994. They don't sign a prenup, and something's going wrong with the marriage, and maybe Melinda can get half the money. In a divorce, he doesn't want her to get half the money. What do you do? And then the alternate plan is something like you commit the marital assets to this nonprofit, and then it sort of locks Melinda into not complaining about the marriage for a long, long time. And it's some kind of a and so there's
that's a fascinating take. So he's saying maybe that's why he went into philanthropy, because all of his assets are in that, and she couldn't do anything about it. Whoa!
Something about the left-wing philanthropy world that was it was some sort of boomer way to control their crazy wives or something like this. And that's
also an effective way to whitewash your past, right? Your thought.
Sure, there are all these, and he talked to Epstein about. He got Epstein to meet with the head of the Nobel Prize Foundation. So it was,
It's crazy.
yeah, Bill Gates wanted to get a Nobel Prize,
Wow.
right? So this is all straightforward. This is all known.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying what you're saying about.
Do you know the history of the Nobel Prize? That's the ultimate whitewash.
Sure, it was for inventing dynamite.
Yeah, that's well, Peter Berg told me the story.
Here's a very fascinating video talking about after the emails got out, he got interviewed again, talking about some of the emails that he apparently sent. He declines them all, but very concerning regarding what he was wanting to do with his wife.
Many powerful people named in 3 million newly released pages of Epstein's personal communications. In emails that Epstein drafted to himself in July 2013, he claimed he helped Gates get drugs to deal with the consequences of sleeping with Russian girls, and also helped facilitate his affairs with married women. In another email, Epstein wrote, "To add insult to the injury, you then implore me to please delete the emails regarding your request that I provide you antibiotics that you can surreptitiously give to Melinda, and the description of your..."
I think we're having a reckoning as a society, right? No girl.
So this is his wife. He wrote these emails to himself, apparently, which is weird, but...
No girl should ever be put in the situation that they were put in by Epstein and whatever was going on with all of the various people around him. So whatever questions remain there of what I can't even begin to know all of it, those questions are for those people and for even my ex-husband. They need to answer to those things, not me.
Apparently, Jeffrey wrote an email to himself. That email was never sent. The email is, false. So I don't know what he's thinking.
Yeah, that's crazy that he wrote emails to himself, but is there some truth to it?
He was there. It just reminds me, every minute I spent with him, I regret and I, apologize that I did that.
Bill Gates built a reputation on intellect, innovation, and doing good at a scale few people in history ever have. But reputations aren't built only on what a person creates. They're shaped by the choices they make when no one is supposed to be watching. And for Gates, no matter what good his charitable work does, those choices are now part of his legacy.
So going back to Peter Thiel and his idea of why they want to do philanthropy or the Nobel Peace Prize.
I was blown away. He originally, someone said that he died, and it was printed that he died, but he didn't die. And in the stories, they were calling him the Merchant of Death because he was the guy that invented dynamite. And he realized that, oh my God, this is my reputation. This is how people think about me. I have to do something to turn this around. So he invented the Nobel Prize. And he started, now the name Nobel is automatically connected in most people's eyes to the greatest people amongst us, the people that have contributed the most to society and science and art and peace and all these different things. Nobel Prize for Medicine. Awarded to the guy who invented ivermectin, by the way.
Super crazy history.
Yeah, it's a crazy history, but it's the ultimate whitewash. It's the same thing. Like, he came up with that prize because he wanted to change his image publicly.
And
so it's ironic that Bill Gates would want to get a Nobel Prize.
Or not ironic, it's ironic, but
straightforward,
understandable and ironic. Yeah. But I think, but then if so there's a underage version of the Epstein story, and then there is a crazy status Nobel Prize history of it, and there is a corrupt left-wing philanthropy one, and there is a boomers who didn't sign prenuptial agreements with their wives story,
right?
And I think all of those are worth exploring more.
I think you're right. That's
all I'm saying.
He was right. He was right. This was a year ago, and more evidence is showing that that is true.
About these left-wing philanthropy ventures, do you think is uniquely corrupt?
Sorry, which one do I think is most corrupt, or what?
No, what about them? These when you said corrupt?
Yeah. Well, man, there's something about maybe it's just my hermeneutic of suspicion, but there's something about, there's something about the virtue signaling, and what does it mean? And I always think this is sort of a America versus Europe difference, where in America we're told that that philanthropy is something a good person does. And, if you're a Rockefeller and you start giving away all your money, this is just what a good person does, and it shows how good you are. And then I think sort of the European intuition on it is something like, wow, that's only something a very evil person does. And if you start giving away all your money in Europe, it's like, Joe, you must have murdered somebody, or you must be covering up for something. And so there are these two very different intuitions, and I think the European one is more correct than the American one, and probably there's some history where, the sort of left-wing philanthropy peaked in 2007, 2010, 2012, and there's these subtle ways, we've become more, more European in our sensibilities.
I mean, philanthropy is actually a good thing, obviously. But that's why the Bible says, do not let your right hand know what your left hand is doing. Like, if you're doing it just to show off, just so that people think that you're a good person, that's all the reward you will receive. But if you don't tell anyone, your reward will be shown in heaven. That's what is amazing. That's the idea. You do that stuff behind closed doors. People who do like show and film and like whatever, I think that could be inspiring for people, and there could be some benefits. But that's just how it works. So that's a fascinating take. I'd love to know what you guys think for sure. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I encourage you to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't. Now, always remember, guys, Jesus loves you.